you do know that you'll be designing a t-shirt, and this is not a lecture on how to design a t-shirt. What symbols you put on it or you don't put on it, or if you screw up and put a symbol that shouldn't be there. This is not about that. So if you're thinking about that, just wash it out. We're going to talk about symbols and why they're important. The basis of the importance, guess what? You've heard it. People talk about whatever subject they're going to talk about, and the word comes up. And it's another person gets up and gives a talk, and the word comes up. But nobody says what it is, and that's mana. That is the basis or the reason for symbols, and you got to get that straight. It's very important. And why would you have symbols? For symbols? No. Because in the Hawaiian way, mana is very important. And to protect it, you need symbols. And we'll go into how that works. Colors and symbols were used on, let's call them adornments or things that you would wear that indicated status, rank, vocation, origin of the person. And why is that important? Well, we'll talk about money in a second, but it's important basically to protect the mana. Very simple. You have to protect the mana because it's important. Examples of that, where you can see symbols. Kappa, you see various pieces of kappa, you see symbols on it. You see either a symbol of some sort of a design of a triangle or a pennant, or you see symbols, lines, all symbols. Lehulu, the feather lei, that's worked into how wide the various colors would be in a lei or not in a lei, whether it has little bits of feather here and there that are a different color. Everything's a symbol. Pu olu olu. Anybody know what pu olu olu is? Okay, what it is, in common terms, the tabu stick. A stick, I hate to call it that, but everybody that rings a bell and you know what I'm talking about. A stick with a ball on the top. Okay. It's not meant as a weapon. It's a symbol. And it's telling people who see it, and heaven help you if it's there and you don't see it, but it tells you that something around there or something coming or something is going to be very precious and taboo. It's not, that isn't the taboo thing, but it tells you that something is going to happen. And that's what's important. And how that hits in our family is the Hawaiian coat of arms, the twins, Hawaiian twins. Okay, I descend from Kame'i Imoku, who has the pu'olu'olu. He's holding that. Then you have the Niho Palawa, the necklace. Then you have the Ahu'ula, another symbol, and that's the feather cape. One thing you also got to remember is that at the time that the symbols were important, the kapu system was in a part of the daily life. So the symbols played along with that to keep people safe. Because if you saw a puololu, or you saw somebody with a certain color or a certain, you would already know by looking at those symbols where you stood and where you're gonna get out of the way, or if you don't get out of the way, you might lose your life. It's that simple. So symbols were really important to everybody. And the Li had the highest amount of mana. So they, guess who has the symbols? They do, to protect the mana. Not to protect them personally. They didn't worry about that. The mana's going to take care of that. But it's for the people who see that, got to recognize it, so they don't disturb it and, cause a problem. Okay. What I'm going to do next is give a short talk on what mana means to me. Okay? It's a point of view that I'm passing on to you, and it's my mana'o that I've learned through my family. Now, you might learn something different in your circumstances, in your family, or in your ohana, or however you learned it. It doesn't make me right, and it doesn't make you right. All it makes us is different. And there's nothing wrong with being different. So don't get the attitude that, oh, I know what it is, and you disagree with me, you're wrong. No way. You're different. But this is what I believe. And that's important. You don't want to get into a beef over mana. Forbidden. Okay, what is mana? Now this is my point of view. It is a universal, divine, spiritual power. To me, that's very basic. And that's true with any belief, really. When you're believing something, maybe that you can't see, that's what it is. But you may call it something different. It is a vital, at least I believe, it is a vital life force. And it is expressed in energy. There's an energy to it, believe it or not. And that can be spiritual energy and physical. Where does mana exist? Well, if we took animals, and we've heard, people have been talking about animals, and especially in nutrition. All animals, such as humans, birds, the four-legged ones, and the non-vegetable sea life. All animals. And in vegetables. Now, what you say is a vegetable, all that's living and previously living vegetables, because wood would be a previously living vegetable. And if wood is part of a weapon, and I made the weapon, I'm putting my mana into that weapon, and that piece of wood I chose because I felt something that was different than any other piece of wood. And that's the one I wanted. So it has its own mana. And then you have limu, land vegetables. I heard somebody say, our ancestor kalo. Oh, that's a vegetable. That has mana. And then minerals, substances such as a pohaku, such as a wa'a, because it's made of wood, basically. Lava, dirt, lepo, into which things grow. Then what are mana's origins? If you thought about where'd it come from? Well, if you go back to the Kumulipo, and you got the cosmics, before you get down to humans, there's where it begins. And I have a genealogy chart that goes through that. And anytime you folks want to take a look at it, I got it with me. And it kind of gives you an idea visually how things work. Did I leave anything out? No. Okay, and how do we get it? Well, it can be individually created during the process of producing something. As you're working on something and you're getting closer to its fruition, you're adding mana to it, and it's gaining as you go through the process. You can steal mana. If somebody has something like a bone of an ancestor that has mana, and you steal that bone, you got the mana. And you can control what you want to do with that bone. You can control that mana. Now think about the consequences of what we've been talking about, in Lua. Okay. Strengths of mana. Mana is not equal. As a rule, the strongest mana dominates. Whoever's got the most, the strongest, they dominate. And in that regard, the old way was not ever thought to be and was not a democracy. So you got to get that out of your heads when you're talking about mana, because it's not a democracy. You don't vote it in. You either got it or you don't got it. You make it or you don't make it. You don't vote anything in. You don't get somebody's permission. You just take it. Or they give it to you. Mana can be used in a positive way, and it can be used in a negative way to create or destroy. Now, mana is transferable, because we talked about just barely, from person to an object, from person to a person, or an object to a person. So it's transferable. It can flow. And why would it why would it move? Well, it could be uhani akua. Maybe uhani akua moved it. We don't know. but that could happen. The cause could be ancestors, Almakua. Remember, you got all the Almakua, everybody that passed before you is there. Maybe along the way, somebody up there says, hey, give him some more. Or, you got too much, take it away, you're not using it right. And then, of course, responsibility. The li'i should, but maybe not always, use it in governing to help them be a better, I don't want to say shepherd because it's not really a shepherd, but to have them make life the way they want it to be for the people who serve them. And when I said earlier that Hawaii wasn't a democracy, and it wasn't a slave state either, because the Maka'ainana, if they didn't like what the elite was doing, they didn't have to stay there. They could go someplace else. They didn't have to stay. But if the elite did a good job, say, hey, they want to stay. So it would be best used in an unselfish way. Okay. Colors. Another subject, colors. Each color represents a particular meaning, and it adds to the importance of the sign or signal that is being given or observed so people can act properly. And oversight, in other words, not recognizing something, could mean death to somebody. And we get the colors. White. Purity. Virginity. Priesthood. The high priests all wore white. Yellow. Well-being. Affirmation of energy. Expanded, strong personality. Leadership. Red. Expansion. More aggression in that. Sanctity. The mo'i all had some sort of red garments. Some sort of red somewhere. It showed creativity. Red and yellow combined is connected with organic growth. Repel demons. The bad or negative mana. Green, sympathy with growth of green things upon the earth, in agriculture especially. Fertility rights, or fertility rights, like not being right, but the process of fertility and how you believe in it. Black, pole, eternal life through death. And I remember Olohi Eli saying he always thought it was life after death. Another way to look at it. And those are the basic colors. And guess what color we all have? Black, right? Okay, also colors are show origin by island. Island of Hawaii, yellow with black, but basically yellow with black. Maui, red with yellow. Oahu, Originally was the Nihopalawa, and then later yellow. And I brought our family Nihopalawa here, and I don't want to pass it around. Um, it's, of course, it's the whale tooth, but each individual strand, and you can come up after and take a look. Each individual strand, it's all human hair, square braided, and then it, of course, worn. And this came down through our family. And I also had lehulu that I had brought previously, but the lehulu are getting so old, and just moving them around, I can't do it. I don't want to take a chance. So I didn't bring any, and I won't in the future. Just too precious to move. Kauai, black with green. Lanai, yellow with a tinge of white. Molokai, green with white. Niihau, white with a tinge of red. Kaho'olawe, yellow with a tinge of red and white. So if somebody had on a kapa, or they had on a cape, or they had any feather adornments, and they had that combination of colors, they're telling you something. It's not just a pretty thing. They're telling you something. You know, where I came from. Okay, the manu. The ahu'ula is the highest level of refinement of featherwork, as I understand it, in the world. The manu were caught by male bird catchers in nets or sticky sap lures. And I do have a thing that I'd like to read to you from Clyde Sproat, who's a personal friend from Kohala, and his family, if you go back in generations, they were the bird catchers for that end of the island, and that's of course where Kamehameha was born. And so the Sproats and our family were very close for a long time. And he mentions that he said and there's a book that he wrote, or he didn't write it. He wasn't very good at that kind of stuff, but he dictated his thoughts, and somebody wrote them down, and it's perfect. I mean, that's Kindi. It's almost like he's talking. Well, how he talks. It said they put the breadfruit gum there. They catch it in the ulu. They would put the gum on the branches, and there's the little bundles of flowers. They put it in there where the birds had the long beak that would suck the flowers. When they go to get them, they stick to the branch. So the bird catcher had to know everything about that bird. Every movement that the bird does, the bird catcher knows. When he looks at a stand of flowers over there, exactly where the birds are going to stand to get the juice. Juice, sap of the flower. And then the bird catcher goes out and he catches the bird. Now, what the bird catcher does next is he takes the feathers off the bird, but not too many to harm the bird so it dies, just enough. And if you look at a bird, you got right side, left side, on the back and in the breast, and the feathers tend to turn a little bit. So they went out with two omeki, and had a right and a left. So the right side of the bird feathers went in one, and the left side went in the other, and they did that. So when they made the capes, or they made whatever, they would make sure that they had put the right feathers on the right side, so it would come out perfect. Okay. Okay. Now we go to the birds. Okay. This is the Hawaii mammal. Is now extinct. Note, there's not, you can hardly see any uh, yellow feathers, about maybe 6 on the bird. So you can imagine how many birds you'd have to catch or trap to have it, to get a number of, to make a cape. Okay, next, the wahoo o'o. There you go. Yellow feathers it's common on all islands, but they call it the wahoo o'o. With a few differences on each island, but they're almost the same. Next, Evie. Red breast feathers, caught by offering a big bunch of ohia lehua or other nectar sources and grabbing the beak. So you hide in there and you have it on your hand, and the thing comes to grab it, and you grab the beak. When it landed on the bunch, unless selectively plucked, the bird would not survive. So you got to really be careful. Next, apapani. Red feathers. And there was evidence from Captain Cook that somebody ate them. And that might have led to some of the demise of the species. Oh, the green back and underparts. Okay, next. Kialoa, the green back, and it was located on all the islands. Note that black and white feathers were very common and not really used for anything. Not really. Once in a while, black feathers is a trim here and there, but you didn't see a black cape. You didn't see, because I guessed that it wasn't precious enough. Not enough status in a way. Dyes for kapa, common sources. Yellow, Olena. In fact, I got some growing at home. Red, noni bark, kukui bark. I got both of those growing at home. Green, ma'o leaves. It's a hibiscus family. Pink, akala, thimbleberry. And black, kukui nut root. And the mature shells, if you cook them up enough, that the shell gets really black. And you can break it down and make a dye out of that. Okay, now we go to symbols. Okay. One crescent, and it's got to be this way, like it is up here. Not sideways, upside down, nothing. Only like that. Represents one royal parent. Two crescents, usually side by side, represent two royal parents. And my mother had two crescents because my grandmother's side came through Kamehameha, and my grandfather's side came through Kamehameha Mokuho'olulu on the other side, and then she was right in the middle.
Do you have them as a tattoo, or?
No, no. It's just that that was her. If she had a if she had a scarf or she had anything and it had the two crescents and she went to a tea or a function and the people saw that, you go, oop, oop, you know, act accordingly, you know. Not that you flaunt the thing, but it's just it's almost like a protocol, so that they don't get embarrassed. You know, it works both ways. Red crescent. Guess what it is? A Maui chief ancestor. Maui, right? Red. Okay, next. The yellow. Maui. Because of red, remember we talked about by origin, you know. So I'm just trying to put the two together so you can see. Yellow. It was a Hawaii chief. Now black crescent was Haleokeawe, and that is the top of the line, boy. You got a black crescent, you know, oh boy. Circles. This was meant for lesser chiefs. And by the way, this, you know, when you say who can wear what, it was self-policing. Because if you respected the ones above you and you put you use their symbol, and you shouldn't have, you know, the consequence is you aren't going to be around. So it's really self-policing. Nobody would let it be around, you know, let it happen if you tried. Pennant. That represents priesthood of royal blood. Triangle represents priesthood, and the difference between the pennant and the triangle is that you know, if you go back to geometry, equilateral, the sides are all the same length. Okay, that's the triangle. So when you see that symbol, that's what this is. Okay, the battle axe. That's not two crescents. That's a battle axe. And it represents, it would be, I want to say warlord, but it represents somebody who's, like they got this movie thing coming out. Okay, he's a battle axe. And then next, okay, the black battle axe on yellow. Guess what that is? Warlord of Hawaii. Island of Hawaii. Diamonds represent rank, and this is a system that Kamehameha Ikahi came up with, and I tried to do research and find out all the different meanings it could have, and I haven't found a darn thing. So I'm still looking. But he used this for, I guess, lesser chiefs. Okay. Okay, as adornments, kapa. And I don't want to bore you with how to make kapa because it's not part of this. But the colors that were worn, the kapa that was made, with the red and the pink with the Maui chiefs. Brown were Hawaii, island of Hawaii. Gray could be chiefs in general, and white priesthood. Now, something interesting. There was a protocol that was sometimes used when one chief wanted to fight another chief over something. They sent signals back and forth, the messengers back and forth to each other. You know, I want to fight. You want to fight? No, you don't want to fight. That kind of thing. Rather than just go in there and clean them out. But they did have a protocol. And when they wanted to go to war, if you had a white kappa with black vana, and they had all kinds of designs, and you can come up here later and take a look, but you can see all the the different designs of vana. If they had that on that white kappa, you're on. I'm coming for you. And if it was just white with nothing on it, that means I don't want to fight. Now, then they'd have to figure out what to do, whether the guy's going to give up and say, okay, what do you want? You know, he didn't want to fight. And I showed you the Niho Palawa. And David Malo made some interesting comments. The Niho Palawa was an object that gave prestige to the Li'i Nui. Only the Li'i Nui could obtain this object. They were not plentiful in the old days. There was a restriction on who could wear them. There were many during the time of Kamehameha Ekahi. In other words, something happened in between. It was during the battle that the Li'i would wear the Niho Palawa, and also during celebrations. So the two times, they just didn't wear them around all the time. They only wore them for specific purposes. During the battle or a celebration of something.
And what were they called?
Niho, tooth, Palawa. It's the and the lehulu, which is the feather lei, usually worn by women of rank. If it was a solemn occasion, be one color. Kane wore feather malo and wrist bracelets. Then ahu'ula, the capes. Okay, we got capes, all right. It showed rank or where in the hierarchy or social order or battle order that person stood. So you could tell right away. And of course the origin, island colors, and the type of feathers. Sometimes they would show kinship or relation to others. They might have a little thing in there on amakua relationships if it was important. Or a reflection of some aspect of the wearer's life that was renowned, then people would recognize it. The higher the rank, the longer the cape, and the more value. The Kamehameha cape, I estimated that it would take 450,000 actual counts using 450,000 feathers for one, and then using 1 square inch and multiplying that area by 6 or 7, because you you got a 1 square inch, and into do the 1 square inch, you needed 6 or 7 little. You get 3 feathers and tie them together, and then put it down, and you get the next thing. So, and as a result, it would take 80,000 birds to get 1 cape that big. So that didn't mean that they had to do it in 1 year. No, I don't think they could do it in a year. It was over time. But not a long time, but don't think they went out and tried to do it in 1 year for 1 battle or something. No. They probably just added on, the cape got longer as time went on. The elite did not make their own cape. They had special cape makers. You had the special bird catchers. You had everything was really specialized.
Someone would put the 7 or 6 or 7 together. That was their job.
Yeah, and then they made a frame of a woven frame of the cape with vines, and then tied each feather starting at the bottom, or not each cluster of feathers at the bottom, and then put the next one over so it cover up the not the stems, but the top of the feather. Well, I don't know what you call those things. The stem. They cover it up, and you just see feathers. And then just keep working their way up from the bottom up to the top. Okay. You might say, wearing a cape. Now, here's a chief. He's wearing a cape, and he's out in the battlefield wearing a cape, and you think, oh, holy mackerel, he's going to be a target. But he's not worrying about that. The cape has mana. He's got mana. So you don't worry about those kind of things. You just direct your people and you go fight. And they see him as the rallying point, and they fight harder. So just because you wore the cape, you're not afraid because you wore it. And of course it was off one shoulder, so they could use that arm to do the fighting. And women did not wear a hula until after Kamehameha Ikahi died. And the reason there was Kahumanum. She changed it at that point. Then the women had little short ones.
What did they not wear?
Yes. And the creation process, I won't go into the whole thing, but they had to, very spiritual. They had to come up with a design, and it had to be proved, and where the kahunas had to look at it and make sure that everything was all aligned, and so it was a very difficult process, and the colors and the symbols and everything had to be. They just didn't make it and say, here, Kamehameha, put this on. No way. I'm going through this pretty fast because I'm trying to make sure I get the high points here in our time. And then after that, we got this is the balance of the hula, just to give you an idea of all the different things that could happen. And that brings me to the conclusion of the symbols portion of your exposure in Lua. We covered a lot fast, but that's okay. You got the broad picture, and that's all we could expect today in a short period of time. But if you ever have any questions, I'm going to be around. And if you, even after this is over, if you have further questions, you can call me, and I'll give you my 2 cents. And so, is there anything that in what little time we got left.
Couple questions.
The long tapes, I heard, more ceremonial sort of ones. I heard they were taken to battle. What are your thoughts on that?
They don't take the long ones into battle, you say?
Well, that's what I heard. The long was more ceremonial, whereas these shorter ones used in battle.
Not to my knowledge. Because they didn't, at least I haven't found anything that says, this is my battle cape, this is my ceremonial cape. I've never seen, this is Kamehameha's cape, this is so-and-so's cape, that's it. So you didn't have multiple capes for multiple purposes. You had one, and because you're dealing with mana now, so you're not going to be splitting up and say, oh, this cape's got more mana than this one. Ooh, I wouldn't want to get into that one. You know, this one's got all the mana, man. I don't need another cape. What do I need another cape for? No, so I haven't heard that. Now there would be some people in battle with shorter capes. Oh yeah, because that's their rank, and it's telling people who they are. Now, if Kamehameha had a short one on, they might not recognize. I don't think so, but you know, it would almost be against not his principles, but against his rank, his stature. You know, his status. To wear something short, say, oh no way would I, you know. So I've never heard of it, but I don't think so.
Back on the subject of mana, if I were making something, would I lose mana by transferring it, or would I be creating new mana?
Creating it. That would be what you'd want to do.
Right.
Now, I have not heard of somebody giving up their mana, but you could. Possible.
So were there ways then to protect against that, I guess is my thought.
Protects against.
Protect against independently transferring your mana to someone else or something else.
Well, if you're in the creation of something, you're controlling it. Now, if somebody steals or beats you up and takes your cape, that's your tough luck. You know, you didn't take care of it. So I'm not sure I'm answering your question, but I don't know if I understand it either.
Well, okay, so for an example, if I'm making a papa and block, right? If I'm making a papa for myself, I'm creating mana in that.
Yes.
There's no risk of me actually using my mana into an object or something I'm creating.
Right. There's no risk to lose it?
Yeah, there's no
Oh,
risk.
Well, if I come up to you and say, you got money in that thing, yeah? And you say, yeah, give it to me. Ah, now what?
What if you give it to them?
Well, that's okay. You can give it. Now, you say, I made this, I have my money in it, and it's yours. I'm happy that it's yours. That's okay. Because it's transferable.
I think your question about if you're making something, you're creating mana, that's not going to automatically steal. If you're creating something here, that object that you're putting mana in is not going to steal your mana.
Right.
No.
It's not like I have 100 mana. I make a spear with 50 mana. I'm done with it.
I understood that from the album, so I got that.
Yeah, it's like so when you create something, you create some mana. That is your mana.
Yes.
In the object.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not a charge. You're not taking it.
Yeah. See.
One more quick question because we gotta keep moving.
You know I've only ever heard that things were made out of single segments. And that they were plucked off and then where to that go. So I had the opportunity last year to go to the British Museum. That's studying all kinds of artifacts.
Right. Yes.
I was very surprised because some of the cakes that we came across are actually had help. Like they were made out of help. Like not the whole thing, but
Made out of
of the cake was made out of help.
pelts?
Help like the skin,
The skin of the bird. They tucked their head.
You sure it could have been Maori?
I have the pictures that I can show you after, because even uli that they made out of feathers was a combination of sewn-on and pelt glued-on. So I just always wondered if you ever heard of that happening, or what era, or if it in books, because I was able to see that, and I have pictures I can.
When you say pelts, you mean if I killed the bird and I skinned it, and that's what you mean? Yeah.
Or they're like they took
Uh-huh.
about this big most of them that were, and they're like right next to each other. So like maybe a section of the feet about, you know,
Okay.
it's all felt.
I've never heard of any Hawaiian cape or seen any reference that is made by pelts.
Yeah, I'll show them because I
You know, you know,
I believe you. What?
yeah. No, I've never heard. I'm surprised because they have to kill the bird,
they had to kill the bird, and it wasn't just
and that
pelt.
well, the Maori would.
Yeah, it's more like a Maori.
Yeah.
So I'd say a couple things on that is one is probably close to the first. And one it might not. Yeah, I don't know where it was, so maybe it wasn't made here. But all of the hula that we've seen in the museum, and
Yeah.
they're all single feather on Wolana. And,
Yeah, this is British.
Yeah.
so we don't know the era. I'd love to see them though.
Yeah.
Um,